Hello and welcome to my channel and Cirrus's channel. Cirrus is sick, as Axo indeed has pointed out. So it's just me tonight. I'm going to solo it. And yeah, I hijacked Cirrus's channel, so all your Cirrus are belong to us. That's going to be here the entire time. We need someone to do some fan art on that to make that canon. That's my whole job on Twit tweets, is to find weird things that are going to annoy Cirrus to prod his artists into turning it into fan art. Sophia asking how late am I? Not late at all. I just started. Also, yeah, some of you have been asking what the technical issue was. There was no technical issue making it late. I was just late pushing the button. But oh, who will talk to us while I pee? Yeah, you'll just have to entertain yourselves for a second. I mean, I won't be the first streamer to just stream an empty chair for a bit. Maybe I'll play someone else's video while I do that. But yeah, so it's just me. I was going to say something. Yeah, no, we're not going to go off on unrelated tangents of discussion today, so this might be a short stream. Bunch of people spamming Blizzy in my chat, which means I need my members or subscribers or whatever the fuck they are to go over to Cirrus's chat and spam Rhino shit. But yeah, no, the Cirrus's chats are going to be the ignored stepchild of this stream, because I just don't have the stuff set up to like highlight their messages and shit. Cirrus and Vice Rhino wearing diapers like true American patriots. Those real men, not American patriots. Sylvie Snow says, yay, we're second class, but I can't highlight it because I don't have that set up. But yeah, no, my if the stream goes down suddenly, it's because my OBS has been acting fucking weird. Like, when I opened it up, all of my windows were like this big on the very side of the wall, stacked on top of each other, so I couldn't see shit in them. And as soon as I tried to move one, OBS just crashed. And it just... That's what it does. Anytime I try to move, I can adjust the size, but I can't move it. So right now, all my chats and stuff are down the wrong side of the screen, so it's like way far away from everything, and it's annoying as fuck. But if I try to move them, OBS just crashes, and the stream will go down. And I don't know what's causing it. So if the stream goes down, there might be something else going on that causes it to crash. So I don't know. Rhino did a hostile takeover. It was not hostile. I asked Cirrus nicely if he would like me to stream to his channels, and he said yes. And he was very grateful that I was like helping his metrics or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Our audiences do have a good amount of overlap, but I feel like, I don't know, we stream the same stuff all the time, so it's not a problem. Just don't stream into an empty chair. What if I want to? Are you referring to when I pee? Oh, there's another fun thing. Anytime I click on something in OBS, all the Cirrus's chats go away. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one, I think, maybe. We don't know. Microsoft is ficking us without lube again. No, that's actually a news item that I'm not going to be covering. Microsoft has announced that there's this new AI thing that, oh yeah, no, if you redeem stuff on Cirrus's channel, I'm not going to see it. So yeah, don't redeem Cirrus's channel points right now. Although, in Cirrus's absence, I'm free to do this as much as I want.
Ooh woo. Ooh woo. Ooh woo.
Rosina Keller says, how much did I miss Lovelies? You didn't miss much. Cirrus is off sick, so it's just me.
Ooh woo.
And I have the ooh woo button, so I can make Cirrus say ooh woo as much as I want. And I still have I still have this one.
Maybe you would want to do a sex with me.
So yeah, we can do that plenty in Cirrus's absence. So yeah. Ooh's in the chat to help Cirrus feel better. Help him get healthy. Oh, Jassa got the hats. Let's see, what hat do I want? Well, you know what? We're gonna talk about that football guy who did the thing at the Catholic Church thing. So let's start with the feminine hat. Oh, look at all those oohs for Cirrus. They're all for you, Cirrus. I don't know if he's actually going to watch this or if he's just going to pass it off to his editor and upload it without watching, but yeah, oohs for Cirrus. So yeah, we're going to start with
Ooh
woo. Rosina sends $2 for ooh. Rosina, you're not allowed to give me money anymore till you get a job. Come on. Take care of yourself first. I'll be fine. I'm not Cameron Bertuzzi over here asking for thousands of dollars because I'm bad at budgeting. Oh yeah, that's right. His mother's a physicist. Okay, yeah, football guy. But we're taking a different tack than most of the coverage. Because I noticed this when I watched the speech, and this was the first article that I saw that looked into it. I grabbed a different article for this, but as soon as I saw that there was one that took this angle, I was like, yep, nope, I'm going for that one. But there was a definite anti-Semitic dog whistle in there that seems to have gotten lost among his misogyny. So, of course, we have to get the background. So Harrison Butker briefly emerged from the cave he calls home to tell the... Yeah, I love the shade that this article is written with. Emerged from the cave he calls home to tell the female graduates of Benedictine College that their most rewarding experience in life will come from serving a man and bearing his children, being a baby factory who stays in the kitchen. Butker, who spends 4 months out of the year at a job that entails kicking an oval ball through raised uprights to the cheers of beer-soaked masses, believes American women are being told a diabolical lie. Those were his words, diabolical lie. And in its most literal sense, diabolical means it comes from demons. So, and given his other beliefs, he probably believes in literal demons that are whispering lies into our ears to, tell women that they can, have jobs and shit. A baby factory in this economy? Yeah, indeed. Senchini says anti-Semiticism means less and less these days. Yeah, I think this is a legit criticism in this one, because it wasn't just Like, I thought maybe I was kind of overreacting when I was like, oh, no, that sounds very anti-Semitic. But now I'm seeing coverage of it elsewhere, so I feel like that vindicates me. So yeah, he says, women's lives begin not when they make a career for themselves, but when they begin their vocation as a wife and a mother. Which, he's talking to women who have just spent tens of thousands of dollars on higher education so that they can get a better job. So, like, fuck you? And of course, they throw more shade by saying this will be quite the newsflash to the girlfriend of Butker's teammate Travis. Is it Kelsey? I always want to read it Kels, but I think it's Kelsey. I don't know. I'm not a football guy. I don't know the foosball. But his girlfriend, Travis Kelsey's girlfriend, that'd be Taylor Swift, is arguably the most successful female entrepreneur on the planet, and is also unmarried and childless. So, correct, it's Kelsey. Okay, sure. Please tell me he's not married or dating. No, he has a wife. He did that whole horrible, gross, behind every great man is a great woman thing that tries to, like, placate the women who might not be satisfied with being a housewife as their lot in life by being like, oh, but you really support the men and make the men able to be great by being supportive to the men. But, like, no, I fucking hate that statement. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those, it's one of those things that, like, it's supposed to be a compliment, but it's not. And I'm sure there are people that think that it legitimately is, but, like, no, it's not. But for all the media focus on Butker's regressive attitudes towards women, one particularly disturbing aspect of his speech has flown under the radar, his comments related to anti-Semitism and Catholic theology. As at a time of rising anti-Jewish hatred from all sides of the political spectrum, it merits greater attention than it has received. So yeah, just gonna flat out say here, genocide is bad, whether it's the Israelis doing it or Hamas. Both are bad. One of them is doing worse at the moment, and it's not Palestine. And also, you need to keep in mind, like, Hamas is not Palestinians. Those are two separate entities. Israel is not all Jews. Those are two separate entities. So these are things that need to be kept separate. All the genocides are bad, and not all Palestinians are pro-Hamas, not all Jews are pro-Israel. So, like, judge people on their individual merits and don't wipe out entire people groups. I feel like those shouldn't be... controversial statements. So, yeah. In his commencement address, Butker said, Congress just passed a bill where stating something as basic as the biblical teaching of who killed Jesus could land you in jail. For those of you not familiar with the age-old anti-Semitic tropes, the who in that sentence is almost certainly the Jews. I would go farther than that and say that it is certainly the Jews, not almost certainly. Yeah, no, that is what that statement means. And this is something I didn't understand when I was a Christian. I had heard about how Christianity is anti-Semitic because they blame Jews for killing Jesus. But when I was a Christian, I was always like, why is that a bad thing? Like, wasn't it God's plan for Jesus to die? So why would we get mad at the people that carried out God's plan? Also, like, they might have been the ones that turned him over to the Romans, but it was the Romans that crucified him. So it was Italians that killed Jesus. may as well get mad at the Italians, which include a whole lot of Catholics. So I don't know. The anti-Semitism of Christianity is something that never made sense to me, even when I was a Christian. Now, reading the Bible as an atheist, the book of John in particular, full of anti-Semitism. John did not like Jewish people. But, like, when I was a Christian, that just didn't make sense to me. But it is something that apparently makes sense to a lot of Christians, and they say shit like this and use it to justify mistreating like modern Jews. And that's actually the bill he's talking about would not ban you from saying, historically speaking, you know, the Sanhedrin, the Jewish council of first century Palestine, handed Jesus over to the Romans to be crucified. That's a historical event. Like, yeah, maybe it's debatable how historical it is, but like, that's just a historical event. It's when you carry that through and say, oh, Jews today are still guilty of that just by the fact that they are Jewish. That is when it becomes an issue. And the bill actually wouldn't even cover that. Because as with all things that the right wing bemoans as being woke council culture, they're completely lying about what it even says. But even if we assume that under this bill you could be so Senshini saying the claim that the Jews killed Jesus was Catholic doctrine until Vatican II, and that all Jews were guilty of deicide because of that. Yep. We get into that in this article a little bit, is that Vatican II was in, I think it was the 1960s, and that's when they officially said, hey, let's stop blaming modern Jews for something that happened 2,000 years ago, and, you know, maybe didn't even happen in the way that it was described. Oh yeah, Vatican II was after World War II. Yeah, 1960s. So yeah, Vatuican. Indeed, Jassa. So yeah, anyway, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act was passed in the House, but not the Senate, and is not currently law. Contrary to Butker's description, the bill does not include criminal sanctions and only applies to educational institutions that receive federal funding. And in a nutshell, the bill provides guidance to the Department of Education in determining whether certain speech on college campuses is anti-Semitic. So it's basically a response to those congressional hearings where they had a bunch of people from universities there and saying like, oh, like, would you allow, like, I don't know, I forget exactly what it was, but like they were asking them very loaded questions, and when they tried to give nuanced answers, everybody like ripped them to shreds, being like, oh, it should be so easy just to say don't condone anti-Semitism. Rosina Keller says, Pontius Pilate, Judas, they had to do God's work. Yeah, that's another thing. There's actually a Bible verse about this that caused me some problems when I was a Christian, and that it's talking about Judas, and it basically says, I forget the exact wording, but it basically is that it would have been better for that person to have never been born than to have done what he did, because now he's like suffering in hell forever or whatever. It doesn't explicitly say he went to hell, but it does heavily imply it. And I always wondered about that, because it's like, if not for Judas, God's plan would not have come to fruition. So like that was a necessary part of the plan. So why would you punish the guy that did the necessary thing that had to be done in order to save all of humanity's souls? And like, if you believe the account where he went and committed suicide because he felt so guilty about it, he clearly would have repented if given the opportunity. So I don't know. I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar has him as an angel in heaven singing the title song. So, yeah, let's just go with that. It's apocryphal, but what the hell? It's a good musical. Dante put Judas in the deepest part of hell, punished extra hard for literally doing what Jesus wanted him to. Yeah, I've never understood that. It just doesn't make sense to me. You forgot about Jesus Christ Superstar? That's Fennec. I forgot about that. I saw Jesus Christ Superstar with my ex. It's a good musical. And I know I say this all the time, but it's true. I once attended a church service with Norman Jewison, the guy who directed Jesus Christ Superstar. So yeah. That was fun. Wasn't Jesus a Jew? Yeah, Jesus was Jewish. They mentioned that in this article, actually. So it says, what is most bizarre and disturbing about Butker's comment is the idea that he believes it needs to be defended from Congress, namely the right of Catholics to suggest that the Jews killed Jesus. So, like, this is one of those things where it's like, even if the bill would criminalize that, is that a hill that you're willing to die on? Is it really worth risking your freedom to protect your ability to be racist against a group of people for no good reason? Especially given the Vatican II stuff. So putting aside the fact that Butker would still be allowed to make his toxic anti-Semitic argument, why would he want to? The false assertion that the Jews were responsible for the death of Jesus is a long-standing and deadly accusation that has spurred hatred and violence against Jewish communities for centuries. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a false assertion if the story in the Bible played out approximately in that way. The problem is I don't really trust the Bible as a source for that, so I'm not willing... this is not a hill I'm willing to die on. I am not willing to make a stand on the idea that it was the Sanhedrin that turned Jesus over to the Romans. I could easily see it having been the Romans noticed that this apocalyptic preacher guy was getting a bit too much of a following for their comfort, and his message was such that it could potentially foment rebellion, and them just doing it themselves. So, like, that's not something that I'm willing to defend to the end, but, like, I don't know. But again, because the official Catholic Church position until Vatican II was that all Jews are guilty of deicide just for whatever the fuck reason, then, like, that puts a different spin on this, where, like, yeah, no, the idea that modern Jews are guilty of it is definitely a false assertion, so yeah. I'm willing to die on the hill of publicly advocating misanthropy. I can get behind that. Don't write checks your ass can't cash. I mean, if there's enough lube, my ass can probably cash a decent-sized check. It's also liable that the Vatican is soundly and repeatedly dismissed. In the Second Vatican Council in the early 1960s, the Catholic Church renounced hatred, persecutions, displays of anti-Semitism, I can say the word, directed against Jews at any time by anyone, and that includes the claim that Jews bore collective responsibility for Christ's crucifixion. That view was reaffirmed by Pope Benedict XVI, who said in 2011 that there was no scriptural basis for blaming Jews for the death of Christ. Sure. Why not? John says, I tried to cash a check with my ass once, but the guards threw me out of the bank. I got locked inside a bank in Toronto when I was doing that thing with Paul. Bloody hell. Oh no. Don't do it. Okay. Yeah, one of my videos where the 10 things that don't make sense about Christianity, where I had Paul and Shannon read out some of the headlines for me. I parked in a public parking garage, and then the staircase I took led into the first floor of a bank that was closed, and all of the doors were locked and had, like, the warning sign on them where, like, if you open this door, an alarm will sound. And that, like, I could not for the life of me figure out how to get out of the bank. I had to, like, go find a security guard and be like, can you let me out? So that was fun. Benedict was Pope Palpatine. Yes, I remember those pictures. That was fun. There we are. Okay. So, to be sure, Butker is not alone in making false allegations about the legislation. Disgraced former Fox News host Tucker Carlson said it would, in effect, ban the New Testament. So if a bill banning anti-Semitism would ban your religious text, that says things about your religious text, not the bill, necessarily. Handful of Republican lawmakers who voted against the bill cited potential restriction on biblical speech. So, again, if your religion requires you to be anti-Semitic, that's a problem with your religion, not with society. You need to, like, fix that yourself and not be in it and not be a dick. Yeah, we got people in my YouTube chat talking about Pope Benedict, how he was German. He wasn't just German, he was a part of the Nazi youth. Or the Hitler youth, sorry. Which, like, can't necessarily fault him for that, because, like, when you're a young kid, you just join a thing sometimes. But, like, still, it's not a good look. Oh, we've got more. It looks like we've got some confusion in Cirrus's chats about me. Yeah, no, I hijacked Cirrus's channel because Cirrus is sick. And we normally stream together at this time anyway, so I just, instead of it being us, I'm soloing it so that he doesn't lose whatever. Twitch hates it when you take time off. So I'm helping Cirrus to not take time off so that he can rest. And so all your Cirrus are belong to Rhino. And I can make him say ooh.
Ooh.
So that's fun. Sylvie Snow says Twitch dumb. Indeed. Rhino sent Cirrus with the best help he needed, the best help. So that was that was me having everybody send oohs in the chat. Send oohs for Cirrus healing. Okay. So a handful of Republican lawmakers who voted against the bill cited the potential restriction on biblical speech. According to Marjorie Taylor Greene, it could convict Christians of anti-Semitism for believing the gospel that says Jesus was handed over to Herod to be crucified by the Jews. Okay, she doesn't even know her own fucking religion. The Sanhedrin handed him over to Pontius Pilate, who then tried to pass him off to Herod, but Herod was like, nah, man, not my problem, and sent him back. So no, the Jews didn't hand him over to Herod. Herod was one of the Jews. I'm sorry. It feels dirty saying the Jews like this. I don't know. I prefer to say things like Jewish people. And, you know, like, yeah, I don't know. It just because it's been used so anti-Semitically so frequently, it just feels wrong to say it. Naramdaput says, worth noting, religiously motivated hate is still hate. Indeed. Marjorie Taylor Greene not knowing things, dull surprise. Stratahawk. Yeah, I'm just going to stop highlighting the chat because every time I click on it, it makes all my windows mess up because of the aforementioned problem where OBS is messed up. So now every time I click on something in OBS, all the other windows I have open so that I can see shit go behind OBS.
Ooh.
Oh, but now I need to see the super chats. Rosina Keller says, what Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't know could fill a warehouse. Just one? I'd be willing to bet it could fill a lot more than that. Yeah, so anti-Jewish hate crimes are on the rise. College campuses are rife with anti-Semitic slogans, and Jewish businesses and cultural institutions are bearing the brunt of the popular anger over the war in Gaza. So again, this is my point of Jewish people are not necessarily... a Jewish person is not the same as Israel. Israel is in the process of committing a genocide. That's not a reason to direct hate towards Jewish people. Now, are there Jewish people that support that genocide? Yes, there are. That does not mean that it's okay to just be like, oh, that person's a Jew, therefore I'm going to get mad at them for supporting genocide. You can't make that assumption. Judge individual people on their individual qualities and beliefs and whatnot. And the same thing with Hamas, because if Hamas had the ability to, absolutely, they would wipe out Israel completely. They would commit genocide on Israel. That does not mean that all Palestinians agree with Hamas. So it's okay to say, no, I don't like Hamas, and no, I don't like fucking Netanyahu, who, this was one of the news items that I wasn't going to cover tonight, but a bunch of Republicans, I think it was Lindsey Graham. One of them, gave a speech on the House floor that it basically said like, oh, if the ICC can come after Netanyahu for committing war crimes, then he's gonna come after us next, or then they're gonna come after us next. And then like the audience applauded because it's like, yeah, if you've done war crimes, I'd like you to go to jail for that. So, oh, they charged both Hamas and Bibi with war crimes? Great. I didn't see that Hamas got charged, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've said it before and I will say it a million times again. All genocides are bad. Doesn't matter who's doing it. US doesn't listen to the ICC as it is. Yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me. Making drywall for sandwiches. Is that Surus lore stuff that I don't, because I know there's like is it Drywall Coon? I know there's something about drywall on Surus's channel. Who doesn't want Bush to be tried by international court? I would love that. That would be amazing. Probably Obama as well. Yeah. Okay. Biden has tied hands, but still I wish he would take a harder stance on Israel. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It would be political suicide for him to outright condemn them and deny support to them completely. And political suicide for a Democrat candidate is not something that the states can afford right now. But yeah, it sucks that it's just kind of a given that the United States is going to support Israel no matter what the fuck they do. Like, no, come on, man. I wish he would take a stand against SCOTUS. Yeah, that too. Yeah, no, Biden sucks, but still fucking vote for him. Because, like, yeah, he sucks. And again, this is something I've said a million times before. The way you send a message with your vote is by voting as progressive as possible in the primaries, and then just sucking it up and voting for the, like, whichever candidate is the most progressive in the general election, which will, like, unless we see another fundamental shift like we did between the Republicans and Democrats in the middle of the 20th century, it's always going to be the Democrat. You got a two-party system. It sucks, but it's what you got. So you send the message with your vote in the primaries, and then in the actual general election, you vote for the not dictator in this case. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, you got some Brennis says, I'm not voting for Biden. I live in Canada. Same here. If I was in the States, I would vote for Biden. But yeah, no, I am Canadian. He could push for court expansion. Yeah, there's a lot that Biden could do that he's not doing. I agree. It's not great. I also don't, like, he has done shit that he doesn't get credit for. Like, a lot of people have had their student loans reduced or outright forgiven under Biden. Not as many as he tried to, but again, he did the thing where he was going to help basically everybody that had a student loan by forgiving a good chunk of it, and sometimes all of it. It was the Supreme Court that got in the way of that. Yes, he could push for expanding the court, and that could have potentially changed that in the past, but the fact is that he did the thing, and he cannot control what the Supreme Court does at this point. So, yeah, Biden's not great, but he's better than the people that are, like, completely 100% dead set against him, would like to say that he does. So it was Duct Tape Jake resubscribed. Oh, it says this isn't Hollow Knight. I stream Hollow Knight like twice a year. So no, this isn't Hollow Knight. This is me being political. Neuromniput says, to be fair, I'm somewhat skeptical of a president's legal authority to forgive student loans. Yeah, and that... Jazz says he's better than anyone else running. Yeah, absolutely. And yes, to clarify, Neuromniput says very much in favor of student loans being forgiven, though. I didn't doubt that for a second, because I know you well enough to know that. But yeah, no, that is one of those things where, like, yeah, it is kind of doubtful that he could that like that might have been a not terrible decision by the Supreme Court, but still would have been nice if it could have just not been sued about in the first place. Weird Girl 46 says Hollow Knight, is that a game? Yeah, it's the game that I play. I'm not much of a gamer. I play one game over and over again, and it's Hollow Knight. I've probably, like, when you combine my Steam and Switch, I probably have over 600 hours in Hollow Knight. But I also don't play any other games, so it's not like I'm playing games all the time, and that's how I got it. It's just, yeah, it is what it is. Okay, anyway, back to the article. We're almost done with this one. Donald Trump, the GOP presidential candidates for the third time in a row. Rosina super chatted. What'd you say? Says, do you vote out of existential fear in Canada? Not to the same degree that you guys do. And also, because our system is set up differently, I can be more strategic with my votes, and I can vote for not the... So, in Canada, our two main parties are Liberal and Conservative. That's actually the party name. So we specify Big C Conservative versus Little C Conservative. Basically, the Conservatives are our version of Republicans, and the Liberals are our version of the Democrats. But we are not a two-party system. We're a parliamentary system where whichever party in power has the most seats, the head of that party is the prime minister. We don't vote for the prime minister directly. And there are situations where, like, if they don't have a certain number of seats, like there's a certain minimum number of seats where you have to have a majority to where, like, you are basically the guy in charge. But if you don't meet that threshold, you can kind of team up with one of the other parties to form a minority government, where it's like two parties that did not get the majority vote can combine forces and be like, okay, well, this party will support that party as the prime minister. And so then that way, so NDP are more progressive. So they'd be like they're not like they're not like left-wing communists, but they are way more progressive than the Liberals. And often what's happened is the Liberals and the NDP will come together to form a minority government, and that gives the NDP extra power where they can say, like, you have to do things that we like, otherwise we will institute a vote of no confidence, and that'll throw the whole thing into an election again. You might not be prime minister after that. So it gives the smaller parties a lot more power when there's a minority government. Yeah, so because of that, I can actually look at my riding, which is my district, basically. So provincially and federally, provincially being like state government, the equivalent of that, and federally being federally. So provincially, my riding tends to either go conservative or liberal. It like never goes NDP. So I will not vote for the NDP in the provincial elections. I will vote Liberal because NDP just doesn't have a chance of winning, and the Liberal are the ones that are the closest to my values. And the Conservatives fucking suck, especially fucking Doug Ford, who wants to take away our healthcare and turn it private, and he just is a just overall piece of shit. We call him Canadian Trump because that's basically what he is. But my riding federally sometimes does go NDP. It often does go NDP. So like we'll be either NDP or conservative or liberal. Like it rotates between the three. So federally, I'll vote NDP because that's the party that most aligns with my values, that actually has a chance of winning. And then if it's a minority government, like the NDP is a small enough party, they're not going to take the majority. But if there's a minority that's a coalition between the Liberals and the NDP now have a greater say in policy decisions. So yeah, it's this has been our Canadian civic lessons for the day.
Oh well.
And Rosina says, didn't Doug Ford have a weird brother? Yeah, he was the mayor of Toronto, I think. There was a bunch of drugs and stuff going on there. Yeah, he was a strange person to be sure. But yeah, let's finish this off. So Donald Trump has not only a history of making anti-Semitic statements, but he recently said that any Jewish person who votes Democrat or votes for Joe Biden should have their head examined. Which, like, telling entire religious groups of people who they need to vote for, otherwise they're not really that religion, is kind of gross, no matter how you say it. Like, it would be weird to find a hardcore evangelical Christian that doesn't vote Republican, but I'm not going to tell them that they're crazy for not doing it. And now extremist Catholics are fighting for the right to revive the age-old blood libel about our responsibility for the death of Jesus Christ. So yeah, the author of this article is Jewish. That's where they kind of give away the game on that one, as if that's really something they need to hide. But yeah, no, so they have a personal stake in this, and they have more direct experience with the rise in anti-Semitism. So yeah. Draconic Druid says my writing is NDP or liberal generally. Yeah, so if that was the case in my writing, I would basically vote NDP all the time. But because it sometimes does go to the conservatives, I vote for whichever party is most likely to win that is not conservative. Okay, so that's the take on Butker's commencement speech that most people have not been taking. So now I can take this off so I can get out of the kitchen now. And maybe I'll get away without someone redeeming a hat. And I can actually just look normal for the next news item. On another note, where's Cirrus? So yeah, once again, Cirrus is sick tonight, so I hijacked his stream. He would normally be in the box where I have the meme right now. It says, all your Cirrus are belong to us. And now I lost the chat because I clicked in the thing. There it is. Oh, fuck you, Asina Salen. You and your hats. Okay. Let's go communist for this. In communist North Carolina, mask wears you. Yeah, so North Carolina lawmakers push for a bill to ban most public mask wearing, citing crime. So, Republican lawmakers in North Carolina are pushing forward with their plan to repeal a pandemic-era law that allowed the wearing of masks in public for health reasons. So, yeah. If you have health problems and you're worried about people giving you the plague, you're not allowed to wear a mask anymore. Or you won't be if it passes the House and gets signed by the governor. So the bill, which would raise penalties for someone who wears a mask while committing a crime, including arresting protesters. So because of my technical difficulties, I didn't have enough time to do as much detailed research as I normally do for these things. I normally would have actually read the bill to see what it says. So I don't actually know if the bill specifies that just wearing the mask in general is now a crime, or if it's just if you wear a mask while committing a crime, you have a higher penalty. So this implies that it's just wearing a mask while committing a crime. There's a higher penalty for that, which I'm not entirely against, but I think there should be... So this bill is most definitely targeted towards the anti-Israel protests that are happening on college campuses. I think there should be an exemption for like in order for the increased penalty to apply, I feel like it should have to be shown that like you part of the argument should be that you have to prove in court that the crime that was being committed was pre-planned, that the reason you were wearing the mask was so that you could commit the crime without being identified. Because, like, if you rob a bank without wearing a mask, that's one thing. And if you put on a mask and go rob a bank, like, clearly you planned that out. So, Rosina Keller says, isn't there an exception for the KKK? No, actually. This bill was originally introduced in order to combat the KKK. So, like, this was, they were KKK people doing crimes and shit. And so they passed this bill to be like, hey, if you're gonna cover up your face and do a crime, we're raising the penalties for you. So if you're a member of the KKK, fuck you. You go to prison longer. But now Republicans are using it on people who have like compromised immune systems, because like having a compromised immune system is just as bad as being a member of the KKK, I guess, according to Republicans. But yeah, so I feel like the health exemptions are fine. Like it should be specifically that like you have to be premeditating the crime. The reason you wore the mask was to commit the crime. If you're part of a protest that crimes of passion happened at, and you happen to be wearing a mask because you're in a crowd, you're at a protest, you want to protect your health, that is not like, I don't feel like that rises to the same level of like premeditation of like I was wearing a mask specifically so that I commit a crime and get away with it. Now, like, yeah, I'm sure Republicans would argue that a lot of these protesters do intend to commit crimes when they go there, to which I would say, okay, well, if you say that the intention was there and it was premeditated, then it shouldn't be a problem to make that a part of the bill. You just need to prove it as a part of the legal process. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, but like when talking about sending people to prison, it should be harder to do that than to just be able to do it on a whim. I'm okay with that being hard. It should be hard to send people to prison. You should have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed the crime. And I feel like if there's going to be increased penalties for some of the circumstances of the crime, it should be like linked to that. Jester Lord of Fools says, how about protests should be legal but not committing crimes during the protest? Isn't that already the case? I'm pretty sure that's already the case. You're allowed to protest. You can't commit crimes during the protest. Now, there could be an issue with that where some of the protests didn't have permits or whatever, and there is something to be said for protesting illegally. Like Martin Luther King was a big fan of civil disobedience. Swarmofrat says, when are we going to make crime illegal? Yeah. Fennec says they're trying to ban protests. Yeah. Pretty much. So yeah, opponents of the bill say it risks the health of those masking for safety reasons, but those backing the legislation says it's a needed response to the demonstrations, including those at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, that escalated to police clashes and arrests. So that's what I mean. If you're going to a protest and you're wearing a mask because you don't want to get sick and you're in a crowd of people, that's fine. Especially like if it's a medical, like if you're wearing a ski mask, that's a little bit different. It like when you get into legal terms, it becomes kind of arbitrary. But like if you're wearing a medical mask while you're in a group of people, I feel like that's fine. But yeah, no, this is specifically targeted at protesters. It's not actually, it's not actually going to affect crime rates in general. So yeah, most of the pushback against the bill is centered around its removal of the health and safety exemptions for wearing a mask in public. The health exemption was added at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic along largely bipartisan lines. So yeah, wear a mask in public in order to protect yourself and others. I'm fine with that. Like, I would love it if everybody just wore a mask when they were sick. I would love it. That would be amazing. Be so good. Paige Wilder 00 says people also wear masks to avoid being traced through public photos and killed. Yeah, so they're actually, if you're going to be part of a protest, there actually is a legitimate concern where like you don't necessarily want to be like, you want to support whatever cause it is, but you don't necessarily want your support of that cause to be public knowledge about you, especially if it's something that is so divisive as like the Israel versus Palestine thing, where like it seems like anyone who says anything against either side gets the other side all up in arms about it. Which I actually feel like I've been pretty lucky in that I feel like most people, if they took the position that I have, it would usually be the pro-Israel people that would get on their case about it. because most of the pro-Palestine people understand that there's a difference between Palestine and Hamas. But a lot of the pro-Israel people are like, no, Palestine equals Hamas. Therefore, if you are pro-Palestine, you are pro-Hamas. And they have explicitly said they want to genocide the Israelis. It's like, okay, no, that's not what I'm saying. But I don't know. It's weird. It's wild. This is my medical black balaclava, says Paladin Lost. Yeah. But, anyway, so the health exemption was added at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the original bill was passed in 1953 to address the Ku Klux Klan activities in North Carolina. So, yeah, I am all for not... So, here's the thing. Is this going to be applied equally? Because there's a lot of, like, neo-Nazi rallies where they're wearing their, like, blue shirts, khaki pants, and face masks and demonstrating all over the place. And I believe some of those have taken place in North Carolina. So is this statute going to be applied equally to them? Because they generally get ignored by police. I mean, it's hard for the police to be there to arrest anyone as part of that rally when they're probably all in the rally. So... someone redeemed a hydrate. Sean Helfen, thank you for the hydrate. But, so Democratic lawmakers repeated their unease about how removing protections for people who chose to mask for their health could put immunocompromised North Carolinians at risk of breaking the law, where they say you're making careful people into criminals with this bill. It's a bad law. So, yeah, I agree with that. You hear Eric Adams and his lack of attempt to quell the protests? No, I didn't. But for some reason that reminded me, this is another news item that I won't be covering, but I didn't have my notepad document open at the beginning that I normally would because of my stupid technical difficulties where I have like the list of things I'm not covering. So, one of the things I'm not covering is Nick Fuentes accidentally watching gay porn live on stream and then blaming Mossad for and the IDF for hacking his stream to make it look like he was watching gay porn. Paige Wilder says, wait, what? Yeah, Nick Fuentes, neo-Nazi, who is on record saying that having sex with a woman is gay, ended a stream, forgot to hit the end stream button, and then immediately tabbed over to a bunch of gay porn. And continued streaming for a while watching gay porn. And then he tried to blame the IDF for hacking into him to make it look like he was watching gay porn, but it wasn't actually him. So, yeah, this is one of those things where it's like, why, I don't understand why so many gay people are vehemently like Nick Fuentes. Stop being a piece of shit and then just admit that you're gay. Like, first off, stop being a piece of shit. Like, Milo Yiannopoulos, openly gay, still a piece of shit. We don't care that he's gay. We care that he's a piece of shit. So, like, Nick Fuentes, just come out and be like, yeah, no, I'm gay. And then it's fine. Nobody's going to make fun of you. Well, I mean, people on the right will make fun of you for being gay, but like nobody on the left will make fun of you for being gay if you just come out and say I'm gay. We'll still think you're a piece of shit for being a Nazi, but we're not going to be like, he's gay. Like, no. He's just a piece of shit because he's a Nazi. But like, because he's trying to hide it, it is now immensely funny. Was Fuentes one of the Nazis calling for a porn ban? Yeah, but he knows what a VPN is. Come on, you think these people actually think that those things are going to affect their own lives? Yeah, so that's a piece of news that I'm not covering, but I had to mention it. This is like, Cyrus better pay his editor really good for this one, because I am not organized whatsoever today. Cyrus's editor, demand a raise. Or at least a bonus for this episode. You deserve it. dun, dun, dun. Everyone give oohs in the chat for services editor.
Well,
He's never going to let me stream to his channel again without him. Nick Fuentes watches gay porn on stream. Groypers, Mossad hacked him. Iranian president dies in a helicopter crash. This moment in time. Iran. Well, looks like this was an accident. Groypers need to grow up. Okay. Being gay doesn't make you evil, but being gay in denial and repressing oneself and being unwilling to sort through the cognitive dissonance seems to lead many to bad behavior. Yeah, so again, I'm going to bring my personal stuff into this. So my partner is convinced that I am bi-curious, and if I was homophobic, that would bother me. But because I don't care, I was able to, like, re-examine myself and be like, maybe I am. Fennec saying, as opposed to bi-furious. Yeah, that is a reference to like the stream where I went into more detail as to how I kind of came to that realization. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing here. But yeah, bi-furious was what we decided on. That's my sexuality now, is bi-furious. We got lots of oohs.
oh, whoa.
Okay. Anyway, so Simone Hetherington said that masking is one of the only ways she can protect herself from illness and fears the law would prevent that practice. We live in different times and I do receive harassment, she said about mask wearing. It only takes one bad actor. So it's already shit that someone is getting harassed just for, like, wearing a mask. Like, come on, guys. There's nothing, like, let people wear their masks in peace. Like, it doesn't hurt you. Why would you get upset about someone else wearing a mask? It's not hurting you. Paladin Lost says, I appreciate your commitment to repairing the ooh-woo button. Are you referring to the fact that you can actually hear it now?
Oh, whoa.
Because it was really quiet last time or last stream. Yeah. And then they say, but Republican legislators continue to express doubts. Oh, time to change hats. Let's see. Is this the hat? Oh, no, it's stuck on my computer. The wizard wig. Oh, got the fascinator stuck in it. There. I hate this one. Why do I even have this? Oh, I have this because of my God versus the Devil short, which is fun. I said we'd make good time on this one, but I feel like I'm going through this even slower than normal. So the bill focuses on criminalizing masks only for the purpose of concealing one's identity. So that's what makes me think that this is, like, it only applies if you are committing a crime while wearing a mask. Which is where my whole thing where, like, the intention behind the mask wearing, like, if it just so happens that you were involved in a protest where arrests happened and you were in a mask, whatever, like, if they arrest you, I actually think this is kind of projection on, or, like, maybe not projection, but jealousy on behalf of the Republicans' part, because, like, they saw the January 6th thing happen, and they saw that so many people got caught because they were idiots who took selfies of themselves and videotaped themselves and posted it publicly, being like, look where I am, breaking into the Capitol building. And that's what got them arrested. And they see that and they're like, well, if they were wearing masks, they wouldn't have gotten caught. And now they're jealous because, like, the Democrats are smarter than that. They don't record selfies of them breaking into buildings. I mean, I'm sure there are some that have, because like some of the protests, they did break into some of the school. Okay, this isn't working. Different hat, tinfoil hat. There we go. So some of them, like, they did break into university buildings, which, that's criminal activity and should not be allowed. But, like, were they posting selfies of themselves while doing it? I haven't seen anything about that. So I feel like this is Republicans being jealous that Democrats aren't all a bunch of idiots. Sean Helfin says, anyway, we should cut down on the payments to police departments if half the criminals are doing all the work for them. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they say law enforcement and prosecutors would use discretion. Oh yeah, so the Republican legislators continue to express doubt that someone would actually get into legal trouble for masking because of health concerns, saying that law enforcement and prosecutors would use discretion on whether to charge someone. So here's the thing. Anytime there's a bill that Republicans are complaining about, they always overblow it. Like the bill C, was it C-16 or C-14, whatever it was that Peterson got famous for in Canada, that still not a single person has been arrested for, where it basically is just, we're adding gender identity to the list of things that you're not allowed to discriminate against people for in like hiring and like school applications and shit. So like it was never a criminal thing to begin with. It was just like an employment statute. And they all were like, oh no, that's compelled speech. We're going to be forced to use their proper pronouns or go to jail. And not a single person has gone to jail for that because that's not what the bill actually was. But then when they turn around and make a bill that actually will be, hey, you wore this mask in a public place, so now we're increasing your penalty for this thing that you happen to be tangentially involved in. And now they're like, oh, no, don't worry about it. Even though it explicitly says it in the bill, we're not actually going to charge people with that. Nah, you can trust us. Meanwhile, they're freaking out about stuff that we can't even charge for because it's not criminal. Like we saw that in the Travis Kelce thing with the anti-Semitism bill. That's not even a criminal bill. It's just like guidance for universities. Like, I don't know. It's just so blatant. It's doublespeak. And then they say, the politicians, the people whose professional jobs is politics, say, I smell politics on the other side of the aisle when they're scaring people to death about a bill that is only going to criminalize people who are trying to hide their identity so they can do something wrong. No, it's criminalizing people who want to not be sick. Like, that's what it's doing. There's no reason for it. So, like, just fuck off with that nonsense. 3 Senate Democrats proposed amendments to keep the health exemption and exclude hate groups from masking, but Senate Republicans used a procedural mechanism to block them without going up for a vote. So, yeah. Republicans suck. Extra, extra. Read all about it. Monorail says tight tights. I don't know why we're doing men in tights references, but I approve. So, 45 House Democrats call on Samuel Alito to recuse himself from January 6 cases. So, if you're not familiar, it's recently come out. I don't know why it took so long to come out. Like, I feel like this is something that we should have known about years ago. But in the weeks following the January 6 riots, he had an upside-down American flag flying in front of his house. Which, if you're not familiar, that is explicitly in support of the Stop the Steal movement. So, like, he was explicitly supporting the idea that the election was stolen, and that the January 6 rioters should, like, he basically, it says that he wanted them to have won and taken over the government. That's what the upside down flag would mean. So Fennec says, really, an upside-down flag was originally a sign of distress. Yeah, so that's where they kind of hijacked it, where right-wing nutjobs took the original meaning was like, yeah, you fly your country's flag upside down, it's a sign of distress. And they took that and ran with it and been like, oh, well, you know, the election was stolen, therefore our country is in distress, so we'll fly the flag upside down. So yeah. More than 40 House Democrats are calling on Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito to recuse himself from cases involving January 6, 2021 insurrection over the display of an upside-down U.S. flag at the conservative justice's home shortly after the attack on Congress occurred. In a letter addressed to Alito and obtained by HuffPost, because this comes from HuffPost, I probably should have mentioned one of these news items, I forget which, came to me from an anonymous source who wishes to remain anonymous, so I'm glad that it's the anonymous one, because I forget which one it is. But yeah, if you've got news items you want me to cover, news@vicerhino.com. And Avalon of Babylon says, where is Surus? Surus has got a fever and is recovering. Surus is currently drugged up and not in streaming condition. So yeah, Democrats argue that the presence of the upside-down flag, which is a symbol of the Stop the Steal movement opposing Joe Biden's 2020 election victory, revealed political bias and requires the justice to recuse from pending cases relating to the January 6th riot, which seems reasonable to me. If a judge has explicitly displayed stuff on their property in support of a political movement, then when that political movement ends up in front of that judge in court, that judge is clearly biased and should recuse themselves. That is just common sense. And the letter said, even if you had no involvement in the display yourself, the fact of such a political statement at your home creates, at minimum, the appearance of improper political bias. Reasonable people will doubt that you can be impartial in deciding whether Mr. Trump should face criminal prosecution for his actions arising from the Stop the Steal movement, they added. I mean, anyone who is familiar with Alito's history of voting on cases and shit would doubt that he can be unbiased in this case anyway. But yeah, anything that... I mean, he's not going to recuse himself, and there's nothing we can do about it because the Supreme Court are, I guess, are god emperors in the States, apparently. But yeah, no, at least they're on record telling him he should recuse himself. I don't know. Damn no hydration. Oh well, have a good stream. Yeah, if you're redeeming stuff on Surus' stream, I don't get those notifications, but I will take a drink of my water, assuming that that's what you drank, you redeemed. So, and then Van Brig 333 just redeemed a hydrate. Can we get an uwu? You can't get an uwu through redeems, but I have a button.
Uwu.
I will just press it anytime anyone asks for it. I will just press the Surus uwu button.
Uwu.
Oh, since Sakura said I paused the redeems because Surus isn't here to take care of redeems. Good call on that. I probably should have asked the mods to do something. I want an OO. I don't have a recording of Surus doing an OO, but I can say OO. I don't know how you're supposed to say OO. I don't know all of Surus' shit, okay? Avalon of Babylon says, is that an actual button or a clip with a hotkey? So it's on my stream deck. I have recording people redeemed uwus during our stream in the past on 2 occasions, and so I just clipped that and attached it to a button, and it plays a random one of the 2.
Uwu.
So that's his angry one.
Uwu.
And that's his not so angry one. Sylvie Snow says, you say oh-wo? Oh-wo. Yeah, I know, but when somebody asked me to do an uwu before, and I just said uwu, and everybody was like, that's not how you do it. So, yeah. The problem is the impeachment standard is 2/3 of the Senate. Yeah, no, because right now, the Republican Party is too much in Trump's pocket. There was a time in the past where Democrats and Republicans both agreed that the government should function. They just disagreed with how. And so behavior that was as blatantly partisan as this from a Supreme Court justice could actually potentially result in an impeachment. I mean, it never happened before, but it's never been this obvious before. And yeah, no, it's not going to happen now with the current Republican Party. So the letter was organized by members of the Court Reform Now Task Force, a new congressional group advocating for a binding code of ethics for the Supreme Court and setting term limits for justices. I'm glad that exists, and I hope that they have success. Rosina Super Chatted says, can you add your own uwu to the random mix, please? I could. I don't remember which stream I did it on, but I could record a new one. Potentially. I don't know. So the letter was organized. Yeah. So Alito said last week that his wife put up the upside down flag because this Supreme Court Justice Defense 101 is if you get in trouble, just blame your wife because that seems to be standard procedure. Like, that's what Thomas did. Now Alita's like, oh, no, it wasn't me. It was my wife. But, like, she put the upside-down flag up after a dispute with a neighbor over insulting language on yard signs, which was funny because, like, it doesn't get into this in this article, but one of the things was like, oh, they put a fuck Trump sign, or... Yeah, no, it was a fuck Trump sign. And it was, like, right by a school bus stop where kids would get off and see the bus. And, like, immediately journalists were like, we called all the local schools in the area. There is no bus stop near that sign. So they're lying about it. How much of it is a lie? We don't know. Did she actually have a dispute with the neighbor? Maybe. Is that the reason they flew the flag upside down? Maybe. Did they know that the upside down flag was indicating their support of the January 6th rioters? Absolutely they did. There's no way they didn't, unless Alito's just going to argue that he's an ignoramus, which, okay, sure, you can argue that, but then you should just step down from the Supreme Court if you're going to admit that you're an ignoramus. So either he knew, or he's an either he knew and he should recuse himself from January 6 cases, or he's an ignoramus and shouldn't even be on the court. Completely unrelated to this story, I'm just going to mention that, I'm just going to remind everybody of that story from, I forget whether it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, where Republicans, there were Republicans that came out and explicitly stated that their opinion was that the best way to correct behavior that was undesirable was with physical violence. So that was the Republican opinion in that instance, and I'm bringing that up now for no reason whatsoever. It's completely unrelated to this. So, yeah. Just saying. Back to the article, because that tangent was unrelated to the article whatsoever. It says, the justices are currently considering Trump's claims for total immunity from prosecution relating to his January 6th election subversion case, and a decision is expected sometime in the coming weeks. The court expressed skepticism of Trump's legal arguments during a hearing last month, but several conservative justices, including Alito, signaled reservations about the charges that could cause a lengthy delay. At one point during the hearing, Alito suggested that without immunity, it was the threat of criminal sanction that would destabilize democracy by encouraging presidents to use force or fraud to stay in office. So he was basically saying, if a president knows he might be charged with crimes when he leaves office, he will then commit crimes in order to stay in office. I say that, like, no, Trump was committing crimes in order to stay in office because, like, I don't know, man. Like, if you commit crimes, you should be prosecuted for it. Okay, fuck off with your hats. You and your hats. Ah! Octopus hat. Like, Steven tipped 1337. Tipped. That means it came in through Stream Elements. And I don't have that fucking thing open. God damn it. Making me work to see what you might have said. I hope you actually said something. Because if you did not, this is going to be Stream Elements. Let's see, are you on YouTube or Twitch? You're on YouTube, so I need to log into my YouTube Stream Elements. Log in with YouTube. Laced Rhino. Okay, I think that's the correct one. Update my details. Remind me later. Activity feed. Not much is happening yet, which means I logged into the wrong goddamn account. Oh, right. I'm streaming on the watering hole, not my main channel. How about that? Yeah, there we go. Watering hole. Every now and then I remember what I'm doing. Activity feed. Steven says, work is getting to be too much for me. Woke up today and broke into tears. I don't know if I have the mental energy to go back in tomorrow. I hope everyone else is having a good day. Aw. I'm sorry that work is sucking. I have definitely been where you are currently, and I feel for you. So, yeah. That's just a overall shitty position to be in, and I feel bad for you, and I'm sorry. I mean, okay. No, I'm not going to get into that now because the way I was going to go about that was going to sound like I was minimizing your struggle, which I don't want to do. So I'm not going to do that. So Alito has drawn bipartisan criticism over the upside-down flag at his home. Senator Lindsey Graham, the top Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee, said Monday it displayed not good judgment. I don't know what role. He said his wife was insulted and got mad. I assume that to be true, but he's still a Supreme Court justice, Graham told HuffPost. And you know, people have to realize that moments like that to think it through. That's not a complete sentence. That's not a complete thought. But it's good to know that Republicans are criticizing him for this. Avalon of Babylon says an upside-down flag has always been a sign of dissent against the government. The neighbor shit doesn't even make sense. Yeah, like that's... If I get into a fight with my neighbors, I don't then fly a Canadian flag upside down on my property because I'm mad at my neighbors. And I'm always in a fight with my neighbors. So, like, yeah, the most recent iteration of that was they had a security camera pointed directly at our windows. And... yeah, like, it was not technically illegal, so there wasn't really much we could do about it. But we did call the police and we got them to come out and, like, saw how, like, fucking blatant it was. Because, like, over the phone, like, on the phone, they were just like, yeah, no, they're allowed to point, like, there's no reasonable expectation of privacy in your yard. Like, it's not pointed at the yard, it's pointed at my window. They're like, yeah, well, it's not technically illegal. And it's like, okay, just send someone out because it is very clearly pointed directly in our windows. And we have young children that sometimes, no matter what we do, they will run around the house naked. So our neighbors potentially have child porn of our kids on whatever device they're recording that on. So that, like, okay, no, I actually had to post about it publicly on Twitter and make a stink about it, and then they finally contacted me, and then we managed to get, like, an actual officer to come out and be like, yeah, no, that's sketchy as fuck. I will talk to them. And he went over and talked to them. And, like, we told them, like, you know what, I don't want to start an escalating series of ridiculous camera placements, but, like, the neighbors, the women that live in my neighbor's house like to sunbathe in their backyard sometimes. And so I know they would be very uncomfortable if I were to point a camera at their backyard. But that's technically legal, apparently. And the officer was like, yeah, that is technically legal. We wouldn't be able to stop you from doing that. And was like, okay, I don't want to be that kind of creepy asshole. But, like, they're being creepier assholes by pointing it directly at our windows. And they did move it once the police talked to them. So thankfully, that's over. But yeah, I didn't then start posting, like, I didn't then start putting signage on my property that indicated my dissatisfaction with the government over that issue. Even though I am dissatisfied with the government over the fact that they had cameras pointed at our windows. Like, that should be illegal. But, yeah. I don't know. Is your neighbor's husband named Abner? Bewitched reference. I don't get the reference. I never watched Bewitched. Fennec says a massive spite fence. Yeah, that's my partner is on Team Spite Fence because the property line actually goes down their driveway. So if we built a fence, it would make their driveway completely unusable, which would be funny. However, they would likely be able to bring that to civil court, and civil court would be able to, like, it wouldn't necessarily go this way, but it could potentially go the way of them saying, yeah, no, you can't make their driveway unusable out of spite. And then that we would have to then pay to repair the driveway if the fence construction had started. But so I don't want to do that. I think it would be funny if we could get away with it. But yeah, that would be a waste of money. Rosina says no one wins in a war of escalation. Yeah, no, I agree. Florida Girl says, what we talking about? We're talking about my asshole neighbors and how I don't make political statements on my yard because I'm in a fight with the neighbors. And so, yeah, that's what Alito said. He said he openly supported the January 6th insurrection because his wife got into a fight with the neighbors. So, yeah. Senator Mike Rounds said it was weird before adding, why would you allow it in the first place? Yeah. You are a member of the highest court of the land. Why are you throwing your lot in with an insurrection? It's your job to uphold the law of the land, not the insurrection. The Supreme Court has been under increasing pressure to address its ethics lapses in recent years. Revelation that Justice Clarence Thomas had cozy ties with wealthy GOP donors, as well as reports that his wife, Virginia Thomas, was involved in efforts to overturn the election, have only bolstered critics of the court. Yeah, guess what? Alito is also receiving, like, not to the same degree as Thomas, but, like, I think it was somewhere in the range of $10 million from wealthy donors along the similar ways. Lucian Darkwolf says, is their driveway partially on your property? Yeah, their driveway comes right up to our house, and we own, like, the property line goes down at such that we own about a third of it. But they might have a claim to that under, what's it called? Squatters' rights laws. I did look up squatters' rights things in Ontario not too long ago because of a previous altercation we had with the neighbor where they spray painted our backyard and told my mother that they were planning on demolishing part of our garage because they thought it was on their property. And if there's been no contest on the property in a certain amount of time, then it technically becomes the other person's property. So that, well, I mean, I guess now there would be a contest about the thing because that's what started this whole thing with the cameras. Anyway. Yeah, we don't need to get into my neighbor drama again. That's a whole history of thing. But they say, undoubtedly, public trust and confidence in the Supreme Court is in shambles, which jeopardizes our democracy and the rule of law upon which it is based, the House Democrats wrote in their letter. Yeah, nobody trusts the Supreme Court anymore. Well, I mean, Republicans who like that they are doing what they want are trusting them, but, like, a lot of their decisions are going to have implications that could cut both ways. And, you know, they might like the decisions now, but in the future, they could come back to bite them in the butt. It's like, I'd rather just have people up there doing good law. Like, get out of here with this originalism bullshit, which Alito is not as overtly an originalist as Clarence Thomas, or some of the other ones. He says he's a pragmatic originalist, which basically means he just interprets originalism to mean whatever is convenient for him in the moment, which is the same thing that the other ones do because originalism is bullshit. He's just more honest about it. So yeah, originalism is bullshit because the original framers didn't agree on any of this shit. But so Alito does have a few dissents on record where he kind of makes fun at the originalists. So, like, there was one case about, like, whether or not police could use GPS trackers on cars, and originalists were trying to claim that that the original framers of the Constitution would be okay with it. And Alito's dissent was something like, in order for them to have been okay with this, given the technology level at the time, they would have had to either have really big stagecoaches or really small constables, or both. Is like, with the idea being they don't have GPS, so they're just putting a miniature policeman on their stagecoach to track them down, which is patently ridiculous, which is why he said it. So, like, he has some good opinions, but he's more consistently bad. Anyway, the end of the letter. Given that your decisions in Trump and Fisher will profoundly affect the future of a past and potentially future president and of democracy itself, it is essential that the court attempt to bolster the public's trust in the integrity of the court. So, yeah, that's the end of the article. Oh, Jassa came back just in time for the originalism. Yay! And Maurice Bear ML says John Oliver spoke about Clarence Thomas saying his donors are the Koch bros. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I know, yeah, before sending that bet for $1 million bus for him to leave the Supreme Court. That was technically a crime. Because that that would count as bribing a Supreme Court justice. So the fact that, like, if they actually had all the paperwork drafted up, he could potentially get into trouble for that. Because, like, he said they had all the paperwork drafted up, but, like, if it was just a joke and it was just parody, then that's fine. But, like, if they actually intended on doing that, then that is an illegal bribe of a Supreme Court justice. And it's fucking wild that that would count as a bribe, but all the obvious bribes that Clarence Thomas has taken over the years somehow don't. Like, if they'd have just given him that bus and then been like, yeah, you know, like, your retirement would be a really good idea, and, like, not made it explicit, then that wouldn't count as a bribe, but because it was explicit, it was a bribe. At least that's what I have heard from legal analysts. I don't know. I'm not a law talking guy, but I still think that's funny. But yeah, so those are the news articles today. Oh, I should probably get on to the tweets. Tweeties. Where are the tweets? Okay. Originalism is a joke. If any of them actually believed in it, they'd regulate guns to only be held by militias and make a branch regulating them. They literally only said a well-regulated militia, not randos, because they were rich, snobby fucks who didn't think the poors were smart enough to even vote. Yeah. No, and in some of the gun decisions, they went back to, like, common law of the 1700s, like, before the United States was even a country. They went back to English common law. Like, no, fuck off with that nonsense. You don't get to go back to before the country was a country as part of your legal argument. Like, the country didn't exist. So no, it's not a part of our legal history. Like, yeah, it's technically part of the history, but, like, fuck off. Okay. Tweets. Starting with K-Sorbs. Says, get some roosters for eggs, raise some bulls for milk, then you'll see that gender matters, especially at milking time. So that's just bullshit. It just is. That's bullshit. Like, this is obviously just him making a dig at trans people. But, like, there's a difference between sex and gender. There is no indication that these animals have gender identities. Although, that being said, I think it's hens can actually turn into roosters. Like, if their ovaries are damaged, they will physically become a rooster. It might be the other way around. It might be the roosters become hens, but, like, no, I'm pretty sure it's hens become roosters, and they will behave like a rooster. They will attempt to mate with the other hens. They don't produce sperm, so they're not able to, but, like, they become roosters. So, like, get some roosters for eggs? Maybe. Like, you got a hen for eggs, and then it got its reproductive shit was damaged, and it becomes a rooster. Like, it grows the crest, it becomes a rooster. So, like, yeah, you can get a rooster. You can get a hen for eggs that turns into a rooster. So, like, yep, that it's a thing that happens. Raise some bulls for milk. Yeah, no, I don't think cows have gender identities. Maybe they do. I don't think they have the brain capacity for that sort of thing. But, like, gender and sex are different things. That's not controversial in scientific circles. Rosina Keller says, chickens can go through parthenogenesis. Yeah, so they can self-fertilize their eggs. PJ Blaze says, I've heard of ducks changing their sex too. Seahorse, hyenas, and frogs are all far from the binary as well. Yeah, so seahorses, the males give birth, so the females deposit their eggs in the male's birthing pouch, in which he fertilizes them, and then he gives birth. Hyenas are... So they do fit a sex binary, mostly. I mean, as soon as you say mostly, it's not strict one or the other, then it ceases to be a binary, but, like, it is bimodal in hyenas, like, where there's a pretty clear divide between males and females, but they have a matriarchal society where the dominant female is determined by whichever one has the biggest clit, and they, like, stand up and they, like, stand on their hind legs and have clip measuring contests. Frogs, yeah, frogs can change their sex when needed. As we all learned from Jurassic Park, the science documentary Jurassic Park. So yeah, Sorbo's just an idiot. And what I really got out of this was that he enjoys picturing the jerking off of bulls. Oh, PJ Blazer, you didn't know that about hyenas? Yeah, hyenas are wild. Jassa says hyenas have sword fights. Yeah, basically. Never forget that Life Finds a Way is about trans dinosaurs. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, Hitchmeister59 says my favorite are the parthenogenic lesbian lizards. Yeah, there's species of lizard that are entirely female, entirely reproduced through parthenogenesis, which, if you don't know, they produce a self-fertilized egg without sperm being involved. And this particular species of lizard actually still go, like, before they will undergo the process of parthenogenesis, they go through the mating rituals with other female lizards, and they have lesbian sex with the female lizards, and then they will produce the eggs. So, yeah, they just evolved out of the need for men. Oh, hey, Restream's telling me that between all 4 chats, we've got over 1,000 messages. So, yay. That's a good thing, I guess. Anyway, moving on. Natural Theist says, everyone, but especially atheists, if God appeared in a direct revelation to you and asked you to leave behind your worldview, your sexual ethics, way of life, friends and family, whom you want to keep, and family whom you want to keep all those... That's a weird sentence. Friends and family whom you want to keep all those, repent and accept the sacrifice of Jesus, would you do it? Remember, he tells you, too, that you are wrong in rejecting the historical event of the resurrection of Jesus. So this is a question that has a lot of nuance to it that the asker was not intending to be there. So, like, God is appearing in a direct revelation to me. How do I know that this is actually God doing the revelating? Am I hallucinating? Am I going insane? Did somebody slip something into my morning tea that is making me see things? Are there other people that can confirm this revelation to me? Like, there are a lot of unanswered questions here. Like, I'm not saying that there's no evidence that could possibly convince me that God exists. What I am saying is that this scenario sounds like a hallucination. And, like, but also, like, would I want to worship a God who, like, tells me, I need to abandon my partner, my children, in order to worship this God? Like, that does not sound like a good God. That does not sound like a God that I would want to worship. Like, a loving God would want me to be there for my family, would want me to be there for my partner, who I'm actually going to... Okay, just a second. I have to yell a thing.
Oh, well.
I heard the ooh, even though I wasn't wearing my headphones. If you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha. Okay, just a second. I have to get up and walk. She went to bed. That bitch. I'm gonna leave her for God now. No. Okay, so. Okay, I'm gonna take a guess here. Anytime I've refrained from saying things until I've asked her about it, she's always just kind of laughed at me and been like, "Yeah, it's fine, whatever." So she recently got diagnosed with diabetes. And so, like, someone clipped that. What did I say? That was clip worthy. But sure, someone clipped that. Yeah, so she recently got diagnosed with diabetes, which, like, it's not the end of the world. It's manageable, but she needs my support right now. She needs help. She needs the emotional support of like someone who can help her. Like, so for instance, she's going to cook her own meals for the next little while she gets used to like the dietary changes she has to make. And so rather than have to cook something for her and then something for everybody else, I'm going to take over cooking for the rest of the family for every meal for this foreseeable future, where normally we would tag team that sort of thing. So if God now comes down and says you need to abandon her and leave her alone with like not just her 2 kids, but also your 3 kids, because you're abandoning those guys as well, because like it's friends and family that we have to leave behind. That's not a loving God, because she needs the help right now. Same thing, like, and again, so this is one I did explicitly ask permission to talk about this. My oldest child has been recently diagnosed with autism. So we now have a new autism diagnosis, which like the diagnosis is actually helpful because there are certain behaviors that like, okay, now we know these are the kinds of accommodations that are reasonable to make based on the diagnosis, versus if you're neurotypical, that's not an acceptable behavior. So like it's definitely helpful to have the diagnosis, but it's still like, like we've had a lot going on in our family recently, where if God were to pop in and be like, hey, yeah, you need to just leave all them now. No, fuck you. That's not the kind of thing a loving God would say right now. Welcome to the club for the eldest rhino child. I didn't know that they had a club. So yeah, no, but and that's also that's another check mark in the box of my partner is trying to diagnose me with autism, which unofficially, like if I get the official diagnosis right now, that's not going to make a difference. But she's trying to convince me that I have autism, and I've been kind of resistant to that. But like the evidence has been piling up, and now it's like, okay, well, there is a genetic component to it. And one of my kids was just diagnosed with it. So, yeah. I probably have autism. So, yeah. But anyway, he also told me that I was wrong in rejecting the historical event of the resurrection of Jesus. Okay. I don't feel like that's relevant at that point. Like, if a god personally reveals himself to me in a way that I could actually be sure that they are a god, it doesn't matter whether they, like, whichever one it is, I'm just going to assume that that's the one that it is. But also, like, I don't know, people in the chat have been saying, like, how do you know it's not Satan pretending to be God?
Oh, well.
You don't. So, Aaron Primet says, autism, that's something Vice Rhino and I have in common. Yeah, that's one of the things that my partner has been saying points to me potentially having it, is that I tend to collect people around me that also have autism and other neurospiciness. Like my closest friend groups are just full of people with ADHD and autism. And so she's like, yeah, the neurospicies tend to clump together. So yeah, there we go. So Zerask says, I would like to... it's not popping up. Yeah. It's being stupid. Okay. Zerask for $5 says, I would believe in God then, but I also think he's a douchebag. That is fair. Yeah, absolutely. It's like Christians want you to think that God is loving, but then they come up with these scenarios where he's telling you to abandon the people who need you most in the world. That's not loving. Okay. Omnia Munda Mundus says, that doesn't mean they are atheists. But so Hemant Meta said, for the first time, a majority of Scottish people say they have no religious affiliation, and it's probably an underestimate. Because, like, religious affiliation is a weird thing in Europe where, like, there are some... I don't know if Scotland is like this, but there are some countries where, like, you're just automatically registered as a member of a church when you're born, and then you have to actively go through the process of deregistering yourself. So a lot of people, when they come out with the numbers of what percentage of people are Christian, they'll use the church registration numbers where there's a lot of people that don't go to church that just haven't bothered to remove themselves from the registration. But anyway, so this person says that doesn't mean they're atheists, bud. Like, okay, well, he didn't say they were atheists. He said they had no religious affiliation. But then on top of that, he posted these two articles, which these are the two pictures he posted, which one of them are about millennials, which it doesn't say in the thing exactly what region they're talking about, and the other one is specifically about Americans. So, like, in response to a post about Scottish people not having religious affiliation, he posts a thing about Americans being spiritual but not religious. I don't know. That's still no religious affiliation. So, like, I don't know why, like, what is even the point in saying that? Like, he didn't say they were atheists. He just said they weren't affiliated. And if you believe in spiritualism, but you're not a Christian and you don't affiliate with any religion, you're still not affiliated. When even the news is not about the USA, it's about the USA. Yeah, indeed. Apparently people are saying Jimmy Snow is technically still a registered Mormon. I actually didn't know that. Rosina Keller says, you damn millennials are ruining everything holy. Or ruining everything holy. Yeah. We're destroying the church with avocado toast. The transformed wife. This one's always... Avalon of Babylon says, Scots believe in profanity and deunification. Anything else is subjective. Yeah, indeed. My mom says I'm still a confirmed Catholic, even though I've been an atheist for over 20 years. She says I'm going to spend a lot of time in purgatory for that. I thought the Catholics didn't believe in purgatory anymore. But yeah, no, I actually... So I'm probably still technically a member of the United Church of Canada, now that I think about it, because I did go through the confirmation thing, and I never did anything to deregister. I just never thought about it. So, like, it's possible that I'm still technically a Christian when you look at the numbers. But, I don't know. Anyway, Transformed Wife says, there's not one place from Genesis 1:1 to the close of Revelation 22 where God told you that in your time of need, turn to a psychiatrist, right? He told you to turn to the Word of God and to the preaching of the Word of God and put faith in what God wrote in this book. That's right. And the more people that turn to shrinks and grief counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists, the more people are medicated, the more people are suicidal, the more people are killing other people. Come on, we've tried that for 2 generations now. It's a disaster. Fuck you, Transformed Wife. Like, fuck your face. That's, no. Like, oh, like, seriously, like, my kids, like, going to grief counselors and therapy and shit when they lost their mother was super duper helpful and is still super duper helpful. So, like, why would you be against that? Why would you be against going to people, like going to professionals who can help people process grief and loss and stuff? I don't know. That's just like, and being against psychiatrists. Like I said, I have a kid who was recently diagnosed with autism. That is super helpful because now we know strategies that we can use to help her or help them cope with challenges that they face in life. And we know what kind of accommodations they need now, as opposed to, people are complaining about lag. Yeah, I could see that. My computer's been acting up. When I talked about the OBS problems I was having earlier, it would not surprise me if it was based in something going on with my computer rather than OBS being the issue, because there have been stability issues in a number of things. So, yeah. Yeah, no, and like medication, like I'm on medication for ADHD. I have a kid that's on medication for mental health related reasons, and it's been incredibly helpful. My partner is on all sorts of new medications now that there's a diabetes diagnosis, but there was other medication going on as well. Like medications prevent suicide in a lot of cases. So like, I'm not saying that if you have suicidal ideation, a pill is going to fix it, but there's a non-zero chance that a pill will maybe not fix it, but make it better. Katini says, just out of curiosity, is anyone seeing my Twitch chat posts? I see it. Fennec says, medication is why I'm fucking alive. Yeah, medication saves lives. End of story. And that's psychiatric medication included. Fight Mage Studio said, I'm late. Did I miss all the gay shit? There wasn't a whole lot of gay shit this time. We talked about me being bi-furious for a little while, but I didn't go into detail.
Oh, well.
Oh, yeah, Nick Fuentes. Yeah, okay. That was a lot of gay shit with Nick Fuentes because he is gay. And blaming it on the Israeli Defense Force. Rosina asked, do you have the OCD? I do not have the OCD. There are certain things that I have that the symptoms overlap with OCD, but mine don't raise to the level where it would be considered OCD. Like germophobia. My partner's kids, one of them slept in our bed last night, and I haven't had a chance to today, but I desperately want to like wash all of our bedding on the sanitized setting because kids are gross and they're full of snot and the snot gets everywhere and I hate it. And like, this is not like, love the kids, hate the snot. Fucking hate snot. And they're at the age where this, and on top of that, he's like, this particular one is allergic to everything. So like, if you open a window, he'll sneeze. If he touches a plant, he will sneeze. If he breathes the air, he'll sneeze. So like, it's perma-snot everywhere. It's so gross. Lubalar says kids are adorable little germ factories. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and yeah, I've Sean Helfin says I've been there. I'm so sorry for him. Yeah, no, I feel the sympathy for him, but as soon as he's like he's like they're with their dad for 5 days, so now I'm like I want to wash all of my bedding on sanitization settings so it like burns away all the germs and so like that is something that is symptomatic for OCD, but that's also an autism and ADHD thing. And for me, it doesn't rise to the level that would be required to meet the diagnostic criteria for OCD. So no, I don't have OCD. Anyway, yeah, transformed wife is a piece of shit. Trent Horn says children are okay. So he's posting a screenshot of Beat the Cult said all children are born atheists. Lilith says exactly.
Oh, well.
Atheism is the default state of humans. So that's OCD if you understand it's irrational and want to sanitize the sheets. OCPD if you think it's beneficial to sanitize. I mean, what if it's both? I don't know. But I have the urge to do it, but it's not like an irresistible, or like I didn't have time to do it tonight. I'm going to be able to sleep in my bed tonight knowing that I wish I would have sanitized them. And Fennec is saying OCD has more to it than just icky germs. Yes, I know that. Actually, so oldest is new diagnosis with autism. They have been assessed for OCD in the past. I am familiar with the OCD symptomology and how symptoms that overlap with autism and ADHD can often look the same, but don't rise to the level required to meet the diagnostic criteria for OCD.
Whoa.
So like, I am familiar with the difference between them and how how I can have things that look like OCD, but it's actually not, because it doesn't affect my life in the same way that it would if it was OCD. Lady Merlin says, my medications got me through a turbulent time in my life. Now that I'm transitioning and I'm on estrogen, I don't need as much medication. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Turns out when you treat gender dysphoria with gender affirming care, it's good for your mental health. It's just a bazillion studies that come to that conclusion, so I'm glad that it's helping you. Dark Excalibur says, I'm not a fan of applying heat to rubbing alcohol. I'm a fan of that. Fire's fun. Okay, anyway. All children are born atheists, says Beat the Cult. Lilith replies with, exactly, atheism is the default state of humans. I disagree. I get the whole rocks are atheists because atheism just a lack of belief in God, blah, blah, and rocks don't believe in God. They lack that belief, whatever. Okay, I understand that position, and I don't disagree per se. However, I would say that atheism is more about, like, yes, it's a lack of a belief in the sense that, like, if you show me sufficient evidence to believe in God, I will then start believing in God. But I don't think you're technically an atheist until you have been presented with the idea of God and then been like, yeah, but I don't believe that claim. You need to support that claim. So, yeah, a kid might technically be an atheist by default, but I don't think it really counts for anything until they have had the, like, oh, God is a thing that exists. What do you mean God exists? That doesn't make any sense. I don't believe you. Okay, now you're actually an atheist. And I get that there are different definitions, and they're valid in different contexts, and with different purposes. I get that. But that's kind of where I land on that. It's like, yes, it's a rejection of the claim, but, like, a rejection of the claim after you've encountered the claim. Because, like, I'm sure there's a word to describe someone who doesn't believe a claim that I've never heard before, that I wouldn't even know what to call myself to say that I don't believe in that thing. But, like, until I'm exposed to that claim, does that word really apply? Because I can't say that I don't believe in this thing that I've never heard of before because I've never heard of it before. I don't know. But anyway, Trent Horn posted that picture saying, children are also born amoral and apolitical, but we expect them to grow out of those immature default states. Ergo, they should also grow out of atheism, especially obnoxious Reddit Village 2004 atheism. So, yeah, no, I don't think that's the same thing at all. Like, again, keeping in mind that I disagree with these people about whether or not, like, babies should be considered atheists, I'm not sure that that would apply with amoral and apolitical in the same sense, because, like, babies have a sense of empathy from very early. Yeah, and it's different for different kids. But, and also apolitical, again, like, that would line up with your, the values that you hold. Now, whether that's nature or nurture, but, like, you know, you could grow up in a household that never discusses anything to do with politics, and then when you start to learn about politics, you will fall into one category or another just because that's the category that lines up with your values. So, like, it's not quite the same thing, because atheism is just like, yeah, no, you claimed that this thing exists, and I don't see any reason to believe that. Whereas political is like, my values best align with this political party. So, like, it's a different thing.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, Naramdaputs just became a channel member. Oh, is a member for 9 months. Like, yeah, I thought you were already a member. It says, all children are born illiterate. That is true. But is illiterate even a meaningful concept for a child that does not have the capacity to understand words? Would you call...
no.
Like, would you call a baby illiterate? Like, that's actually a good point in this debate. Babies have very strong opinions on trickle-down economics. Trickle that boob juice right into my face. Don't clip that. Please. Definitely don't clip that. Yes, but anyway, going back to what was it? Now I'm gonna put said all children are born illiterate. So like, yeah, that's technically true. Children are born without the ability to read. But would we use the label illiterate to describe a baby who does not have the mental capacity to even understand what a letter is, much less how to string them together into a coherent thought? Mark Fernkopf says, don't clip it, make fan art of it instead. I don't think that fan art will make it onto the channel. Yeah, so Swarmofrat says, yes, babies are illiterate. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with the idea that they are illiterate. I'm just saying, is that a useful label for a baby? Because we all understand that a baby just doesn't have the capacity to understand language in general, much less written language. So, like, to label a baby illiterate is just not helpful. It's not until they get to a point where they have the mental capacity to understand what words are and understand alphabets and how they relate to the sounds that they're making and the language that they speak. That's when illiterate becomes a useful word to use to describe someone who should be able to read but can't. So atheist, in like using this kind of a as an analogy, an atheist is someone who is capable of understanding the concept of a God, what you mean by God, and doesn't believe it. Although, I imagine the apologists will take that and be like, yeah, but, you know, with literacy, you learn it, and you learn the correct way to do it, and so now you learn how to read, so being an atheist, you should learn how to not be an atheist as you get older. And that's kind of what he's saying here, but, like, ergo, they should also grow out of atheism, especially. So, atheism being the default state is not the reason to be an atheist. The reason to be an atheist is because when somebody says, hey, I believe that a God exists, and these are the attributes that God has, I can look at those attributes and be like, I don't see how a God existing with those attributes is something that makes sense given what we know about the universe. And so that's where that's where I fall on that. And I have a video on my channel that makes the positive case for atheism. It's like where because my position is like the lacktheism that apologists like to make fun of. We're like, oh yeah, you lack a belief in God. Yeah, sure, whatever. I feel like that is the case. Like that's a valid thing. But then when someone presents you with a case for God, if you want to, like, it's perfectly valid just to be like, I don't believe you, and you don't have to provide a reason for it. But as a YouTuber who, like, my whole job is around, like, providing reasons for why I don't believe what I don't believe, it would be weird for me to not do that. So I have a video where I'm like, okay, here is the way the Christian God is described by the Bible, and here's why that doesn't work. Like, why I don't believe that, like, even just using the Bible, like, because, like, the Bible says God is love, and the Bible also gives a definition of love that doesn't match with the characteristics that it ascribes to God. So, like, I can then use that to say, like, well, here's why I don't believe in the God of Christianity, because it's just inconsistent. And so really what it comes down to is, the whole burden of proof discussion, I feel, is kind of a red herring. Like, do atheists have the burden of proof, or do religious people? Well, it depends who's making the claim. Is the atheist claiming that there is no God, or is the religious person claiming that there is a God? Because, like, both of those are claims. So which one is making the claim in this instance, or whatever? Like, no, fuck all that noise. It's only useful in the sense that, like, it only matters who has the burden of proof if you actually care about convincing the person you are talking to. If you care about convincing the person that you are talking to that your position is correct, then you have the burden of proof, whether you're the atheist or the theist. If you're an atheist and you want the theist to come to accept the fact that their God does not exist, you have the burden of proof to show that their God does not exist. If you are a theist and you want to convert the atheist to Christianity because you care about saving their soul or whatever the fuck, then you now have the burden of proof to convince them. And what will convince someone is different for every person. It's completely subjective. So, like, I don't know. Atheism is a null hypothesis. It can't have the burden of proof, the watering hole. Yet that depends on how it's framed. Like, if we're talking about a formal philosophical debate, then depending on the proposition, if the proposition is no gods exist, then yes, atheism, when framed in that way, does have the burden of proof. But that's my point here, is that burden of proof is something that it only really matters in like formal debate settings. If you're just talking about talking to people and trying to convince them of your position, then whoever actually cares about convincing the other person is the person who has the burden of proof. Not because of the rules of formal debate, because who the fuck cares? You're not in a formal debate most times. It's just about, do I actually care about convincing you? Or am I just explaining to you why I am not convinced by you and you are trying to convince me? So, like, this whole debate about who has the burden of proof, I think, is a huge red herring that it does a disservice to both sides. I keep seeing people telling other people in the chat that things are cute. And I'm missing the things that are actually cute. And I like cute things, so I'm kind of upset about that. I'm sure I'll see it when I'm editing. Okay, Olivia's saying that would be like trying to disprove Godzilla or werewolves or invisible unicorns. We can't. They have to prove they exist. Yeah, but that's the thing. So if someone actually cares about convincing me that Godzilla exists, then yeah, no, I don't have the burden of proof. They have to give me evidence that Godzilla actually exists. But if I'm going out in the world and I'm trying to find people who believe in Godzilla and convince them otherwise, that like, no, you're wrong for believing in Godzilla, then it doesn't matter that, like, technically speaking, they're the ones making the claim. If I, like, just functionally speaking, not technically correct, just functionally, in everyday conversation, if I care about convincing them that Godzilla is not real, then it's on me to convince them that Godzilla is not real. It's not on, like, if I go up to someone and say Godzilla is not real because, I can't prove a negative by saying Godzilla is not real, so you have to prove to me that he is real, otherwise by default you lose. That's just not useful in everyday conversation. In a formal debate setting, absolutely. You want to debate the existence of a Godzilla? I'm not going to even entertain that the proposition Godzilla does not exist is a reasonable debate to have. It's the person that wants to prove that Godzilla does exist that should be the one making the claim. And in a formal debate setting, I would say the same thing about God. But in everyday conversation, that's not what matters. Anyway. Yeah, that's... What? Godzilla's not real, says Mizotaku. But, yeah, actually, no, this is actually a great debate in this, because, like, who has the burden of proof in explaining, like, if there was a formal debate about whether an atheist has a burden of proof or not? Who has the burden of proof in that debate? I don't know, and I don't care, because I am here trying to convince you that it doesn't matter in everyday, just normal conversation like we're having now. So whatever the formal debate setting would be, doesn't matter for this. I am trying to convince you of my position. So I am explaining my position in a way that I hope would convince you. Now, if I don't provide you with enough that you do actually find convincing, if I don't provide you with enough stuff that supports my position that you are convinced, then I have failed to convince you. And that's the result of the conversation. Now, in this thing, I don't think it actually matters. It's a completely academic discussion that, like, it doesn't really have an impact here. But, like, my point is that this is an informal setting where burden of proof doesn't really come to bear on it. It's just, I'm trying to convince you of my position, you're trying to convince me of yours. So we have a discussion, we hammer it out, and hopefully at the end of the discussion, someone's willing to change their mind. And if not, we just agree to disagree. Anyway, I've got more tweets, I think. Frank Turek says, you can love someone and not approve of what they do. In fact, it's required. I mean, every parent knows this. Every parent understands that if you approve of everything your child wants to do, you're not loving. So the difference here, though, I think we all know he's talking about LGBTQ people and the whole love the sinner, hate the sin thing. He's trying to explain that away. But the difference is, when I don't approve of something that my kids are doing, and I am correcting that behavior in a loving way, that is because I can see the long term or whatever. That, like, if they're eating candy for dinner every day, that's not going to be good for their health. So I can see that, and they might not understand that. So, you know, I can disapprove of that and still be loving. Whereas all of the evidence regarding LGBTQ people, like whether it be gay, bisexual, trans, lesbian, all of it, all of the evidence suggests that being affirming, saying, hey, it's okay for you to love who you love, it's okay for you to have a gender identity that doesn't match up with your sex assigned at birth, all that's okay. All of the evidence says that being affirming in all of these things has the best outcomes across the board. In fact, the children of gay parents do better in school, according to some studies. Like, all the studies that have been done, it's been shown there's either no difference or the kids of gay parents do better in school. So, like, it's not a huge difference, but if we're just taking it at face value, and we're worried about the welfare of the children, won't somebody please think of the children, then we should be taking the kids away from the straights and giving them to the gays. Because that's better for the kids. They do better in school. It's not significant enough that I actually think that that is a thing that should be done. But, like, if we're going to pretend that we actually care about outcomes here, that is the best outcome. Yeah. So, yeah. And I'm not just saying that because I have 5 kids and that's too many and I'm a straight, so that would mean taking them away from me. Which would make my life easy. I love my children. Dark Excalibur says someone should have given me to gay parents. Yeah, straight parents can suck sometimes, and I'm sorry for those of you who had parents who sucked. I mean, I'm sure gay parents can suck sometimes too. I mean, there's a sucking dick joke in there at some point, but straight parents do that sometimes too. I would hope. Anyway, this is just Frank trying to justify the love the sin, hate the sin, or no. Yeah, I accidentally said it the way that they actually do it. No, it's the hate the sin, love the sinner thing. It's like, it's bullshit. Like, and I've said this on my main channel. My relationship with my kids is way too important to me to be ruined by what the genitals of the person that they are attracted to are. Or that they don't think that their sex assigned it. Because, like, my oldest, I'm sure you might have noticed on the stream, some of you might know, I had a podcast with them where it was myself and Lily. Lily is now Rory. And Rory identifies as non-binary. And I love Rory. And I just don't see how, like, them wanting to, like, them not feeling like being a girl is who they are, and them feeling like, and like, as part of that, changing their name to Rory from Lily just to match, because that's more of a gender neutral name. Like, that's not important. Like, I love my kids and I don't care that, like, I mean, I do care in the sense that, like, I want them to have a good life and be fulfilled. But, like, if being fulfilled means, like, yeah, I chose the name Lily when she was a baby, when they were a baby. because I liked that name and I thought it was cute and it suited them. And we did this thing where we planted lilies when they were born, and we've taken a picture of Lily with the lilies every year until now. And Rory is going to still want to do that, even though Rory is no longer Lily. But like, yeah, no, that was the name that I chose for her when she didn't have, or when they didn't have, when they didn't have the brain matter to make a decision like that for themselves. But now that they've grown older, they're like, yeah, no, I actually don't identify as a girl, and the name is
Well,
like changing the name helps with the dysphoria there. I'm like, okay, then I'll change the name. I like the name Rory. Rory is in Rory Williams / Pond. No, it was not sure why they chose the name Rory, but like they're old enough that it's like, no, if you don't like the name I gave you, well, I'm pretty sure they do like the name that I gave them. They just don't feel like it suits them. It's like, okay, that's fine. It's just a name. I care more about you than I care about your name. So like, fine, go for it. So like, I don't understand the mentality of like, I would get mad at my kid for being a gender identity or a sexual orientation other than the one that I am. Like, I don't get that. So, yeah. Getting a lot of hearts with the gender fluid, bisexual, non-binary, and gay pride flags in there. So, yeah, thanks for that, Cirrus Chat. Yeah, Rory also, they have not shown very much romantic interest whatsoever. It would not surprise me if they were ace. It also would not surprise me if they were lesbian. Well, yeah, depending on how their gender shakes out, whatever the label might change, but like, not into people with penises. And I honestly can't say that I like that. It's not even entered the equation of like how I should relate to them. Like, it's my child. I will love my child because they are my child. Whatever makes them feel happy and satisfied in life is what I want for them. So like, if they never want to have a romantic partner because they're ace, great. Never have a romantic partner. I will be happy with that. If they want to have one that they're both assigned female at birth, that's also fine. But anyway. Duct Tape Jape says, I can understand not being into dicks. I'm the same way. Yeah, I get it. Although, like I've said many times, which is what made my partner, one of the things that made my partner think I might be bi-curious, is that like, yeah, I'm not, there's nothing like distasteful about the dick per se. It's more that like my picture of men in general is like, no, men just suck. Why would I want to date with one of them? But it's all academic at this point because I'm partnered off with someone that doesn't have a dick. Anyway, okay, so this one I chose not because of what it says, because you all know that vaccines work and they don't cause autism and that this whole post is bullshit. But Frank Turek retweeted this. So, like, I'm not surprised that he has anti-vax sympathies. I am a little bit surprised that he was willing to put them on full display by retweeting that. Like, I'm not going to read the whole tweet, but it's basically some idiot trying to claim that vaccines cause autism, which, as someone who is coming to grips with the fact that I probably do have autism, I'm going to go ahead and say, not necessarily a bad thing. Like, yeah, it's not the same as not having autism, but like, it doesn't make you less of a human. I'd rather have autism than die of the measles.
Oh,
Rosina says, "Be honest. You've been thought hard about spooning with Cersei. You've thought about spooning. I think Rosina's trying to. Okay, I'm gonna actually highlight this one. Yeah." So Rosina says, "Be honest. You've been thought hard about spooning with Cersei at least once. I think you're trying to say you've thought hard about spooning with Cersei at least once." Yeah, I think that was a couple weeks ago. There was that one guy that was like, "It's not gay if there's no actual anal penetration. All they're doing is like just tickling the butthole with the tip of the penis." And so that led to a whole discussion of like, we could be hot dogging it and we're still straight. So yeah, there is record of us having conversations of that nature on this channel. Oh, Avalon of Babylon apparently missed that stream. Yeah, no, there was it was some guy that was saying that like, oh, homosexuality doesn't exist in nature, so it's not natural. And then someone responded with like, well, actually, pretty much every mammal species we've ever observed has also been observed with homosexual behavior. And then his response to that was like, oh no, they're not actually penetrating the anus, they're just like poking it with their dick. And so it's like, okay, it's not gay if I stimulate your anus with my dick. It's only gay if it goes in. So let's hot dog it. That's not gay. It's still straight if I'm just hot dogging it. That was a fun one. Sean Fulldark says, and also penguins. We don't talk about penguins. They're a bunch of degens. Penguins are gross. Like, really gross. And, like, not the homosexuality. Like, it's cute that there was a gay couple that raised an egg in a zoo. That's adorable. But, like, they're like little necrophiliacs. And that's not the worst of it. Penguins are gross. So two guys making out is not gay. As long as a dick does not go inside a butthole, it's not gay, according to that guy. So yeah, two guys can make out. Sure, go for it. Jassa says, why would you ruin penguins for me? Well, you can always have that documentary where Benedict Cumberbatch says penguins. So yeah, at least penguins aren't ducks. Yep, there we go. Hitchmeister says they mate for life and sometimes beyond that. Indeed. Indeed. Wendell says, if a biological system exhibits irreducible complexity that it cannot have arisen through gradual evolutionary processes but requires an intelligent designer, biological systems exhibit irreducible complexity, therefore biological systems require an intelligent designer. And then he goes on to define irreducible complexity, which is just a bunch of bullshit. They actually... So irreducible complexity is a bit of a misnomer, because a complex system is way more likely to be able to still work if you take a piece out of that system than a simple system. So like they use the mousetrap as an example, where like, oh, it's got 5 things: the base plate, the catch, the bar, the little bait holder thingy, whatever it is. I don't know. They have just a few parts. And if you take one away, it doesn't work anymore. Now, ignoring the fact that a bunch of people have found ways to make mousetraps work without the part all the way down to just like a single part mousetrap in response to that argument, and the fact that, what's his face? The guy that was in the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial where irreducible complexity came up, he actually like testified while using a mousetrap as a tie clip because it still works as a tie clip if you move a couple of the parts. Ignoring that, the mousetrap is a very simple. Robert Adset saying Behe. No, Behe is the guy that used the mousetrap as the example of irreducible complexity. I want to say it was Ken Miller who was responding to it, saying that no, actually irreducible complexity doesn't work because it's all about like if you take things away, it might not work as a mousetrap, but it works for other things. And evolution repurposes things that already exist for new functions. And that's how evolution works. So yeah, I think it was Ken Miller. Rosina says Wendell fails at syllogism. Yep, absolutely. Um, so yeah. So yeah. But like a mousetrap is a very, very simple machine. So assuming that it actually was irreducibly complex and could not be used either as a mousetrap or for any other function, if you took one piece away from it, it's because it's so simple. There are plenty of things, like you think of a car engine. Like there are so many things that could go wrong with a car engine where a part of the engine has failed and is no longer working. So you have essentially taken that part away, but the car still works. Yeah, you might need to get to a mechanic as soon as possible because it won't work for long, and like that thing being not working will cause more damage. But like the more complex a system is, the more likely it will be that you can take one piece away from it and it'll still work. Anubian the 13 says Surf AFK. Yeah, he's sick right now, so he's recovering. So I'm streaming by myself. It's not just AFK. He's not going to be here. So if you don't like me, yeah, sorry. I'm what you get. So yeah, anyway, back to irreducible complexity. Yeah, so when you have a complex system, way more likely that you can take one piece out and it'll still work. It's a simple system that is more likely to be like you take one piece away, it is no longer going to work for anything. So the fact that they always go for things like the flagellar motor, which has all these intricate interwoven parts and whatever that all work together to produce this flagellum thing, is like, okay, yeah, but like if you take these parts away, then it can still do this other thing. Like one of the things that make up a flagellar motor is called a type 3 secretion system, which is a secretion system that does things other than rotate a flagellum. It secretes things because a part of the flagellar motor, which when you take it away from all the other stuff, still can serve a function. So the whole irreducible complexity argument is just backwards. They should be looking for something that is irreducibly simple. But the problem is when you break down biological components to get to the point where it is actually irreducibly simple, you end up getting to very, very simple chemical reactions that happen all the damn time. So like you wind up with like cells being formed by like phospholipid membranes just forming a little bubble, which is just a thing that happens spontaneously when you put phospholipids in water. And phospholipids are a thing that would exist on the early Earth. So like, and Robert Adset says, heck, you can have engines that deliberately disable parts. Yeah, so the example that I've used for this in the past with regards to engines is spark plugs. Said if you take a spark plug out of your engine, it'll still work. It'll misfire every like fourth stroke or whatever, depending on how many cylinders are in your engine. But it will still work, minus one spark plug. And in fact, I don't think this still exists anymore, but like back in the 1950s, there was a thing you could get that was an air pump that like you could take a spark plug out of your engine and then plug this thing in and use your engine as an air compressor to like inflate a tire. So like if you had a flat tire that was just a slow leak or whatever, you could use like it would not be like it would take a fucking long time to do it because your engine's not designed to be an air compressor. And on top of that, there are probably some gas fumes in there that you don't necessarily want in your tires long term. But like in an emergency situation where you have a flat tire, but it was a slow leak, you could use it to inflate your tire to get to like a gas station to fix it properly. And like, that's not an intended use case of your engine, but now you take one part away and it has a different function. It is now an air compressor. So like that was a pretty cool example that I found out about. But yeah, no, anyone that has had a car that has had car problems can know that like your car will still technically work even while certain things are missing from it because it's complex. So like they need to find something simple. But the problem is when you get to simple, you get to easily reproducible chemical reactions that just aren't a problem. So, yeah. And I think this was the last tweet. Ooh, wait. Yeah, that's the last tweet. So, yeah, I somehow managed to go an hour overtime even without Cirrus here to distract me. Yay. I'm good at my job. But, yeah, well, I mean, I guess that means I didn't shortchange any of you. I mean, Cirrus's audience is disappointed that it's me. I'm sorry. Sylvie Snow says, proof Rhino is ADHD. Yeah. Yeah. You want further proof that I'm ADHD? My medication for ADHD is something, it's a controlled substance because of how addictive it is. But I have like 6 extra bottles because I keep forgetting to take it. And then I get a text from the pharmacy being like, your prescription's ready for pickup. I'm like, but I haven't finished the last one yet because I keep forgetting it. So, yeah. So if you're on Cirrus's side and you don't normally see me, go to twitch.tv/ViceRhino or YouTube. I'm the watering hole on YouTube for this show in particular, but Vice Rhino, I respond to creationists and other religious claims. There's a Matt Powell response coming up, not this week. This week it's a guest video. John of Godless Engineer was kind enough to make a guest video for me about Jordan Peterson, which, given, like, there were family emergencies in my life recently that required me to take a lot of time off. And so John has kindly made a video for me so that I have something to put up this Friday. And I was able to, like, use the extra time that gave me to catch up on my normal work. And so this Friday is John. Next Friday is going to be a response to Matt Powell. And let me just say, I think Matt might have broken my record for the most sources that I've ever had in my description. Because, man, that source list is fucking long. It's so long. And, like, fucking Matt, he's such a fucking idiot. He uses Talk Origins as one of his sources. He just, like, took a screenshot of the claim that they are refuting on that page, and then he just presented it as though it was fine. And then I'm like, oh yeah, but if you read the next sentence on that fucking website that you screenshotted, it explains why you're wrong. Rosina says, good night, handsome. Thank you, Rosina. Jassa says, when Zod team up? I like Zod. I would love to have a Zod team up thing. I know I have done some voice acting for him in the past. What video was it? It was the one... it was one of the animated ones. I forget what it was called, but like I was like this Scrooge character. Nope, go away. I was like this Scrooge character who had his mind changed. If I sort by popularity, will that bring it up? Was I a popular person on his channel? No, apparently not. The Man Who Went to Heaven? No, that wasn't it. I'm looking for it. The Fox News skit, the faux news skit. If I search for... nope, it's not coming up if I search for faux spelled that way. Anyway, I don't remember which one it was, but I starred in a Zod animation at some point. I was looking for it so I could maybe potentially give a link to it, because it was a lot of fun. But yeah, Zod, I consider Zod a fairly close friend. And so a future collaboration is definitely not outside the realms of possibility. Sounds like you need Windows Recall. Oh, that was another news thing that I was going to talk about that I'm not actually covering. So Windows Recall is this thing. They advertised it with like the most tone-deaf possible headline. It was like, Windows Recall will watch everything you do on your PC in order to like train an AI to help you or whatever. I'm just like, I don't want Microsoft watching everything I do on my PC. Thank you very much. Now, when you look into the article, it's actually like you need a very, very high-end PC, which is like more than what I got here. Like significantly more, not just a little bit. And it's a program that you'd have to install. Like, it made it sound like it's just Ooh, yeah, a cancel culture carol. It might have been, if that's the name of it. Cancel culture carol. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Thank you for that. I am going to post that link in some of the chats. Whichever chats I have open at the moment. I'm sorry, Cirrus's YouTube chat. I don't have you open. Let's see. Chat? Can I send a message? Yes, I can type a message. So, Cirrus's YouTube. There we go. There we go. Cirrus's YouTube gets it. I'm sorry, Cirrus's YouTube. I've been ignoring your chat because I just don't have your window open. So you guys have probably been saying things that I've been ignoring. My apologies. But yeah, that was a lot of fun doing that. Oh yeah, Windows Recall. So yeah, when looking into it, it's more like it's a thing that you have to like actually opt into. You have to install the thing, and you need a processor that is significantly better than the ones like if it's made by Intel or AMD, it's not good enough. And the AI runs locally, and it's a thing that like I could actually see myself needing use for it. There's a lot of repetitive tasks that I do that just don't lend themselves to being programmed into Auto Hotkey, which is a program that I use for efficiency. Just because like the things that I click on are often in different spots on whatever app that I'm using. But if I had Windows Recall, it would watch me do that thing, and then it would be able to figure out from context that that's the thing that I need to do. So it would be able to do it for me. And like, I could definitely see that being handy to have. But the problem is that I don't trust that it says that it would store it all locally on your own computer and you can choose when to delete shit. I don't believe that for a second. I guarantee you a lot of that data is going back to Microsoft because Microsoft, like just having a Microsoft operating system, they're fucking spying on you. Guaranteed. So yeah, I have mixed feelings about Windows Recall. I feel like it could help me with productivity, and I don't really care if Microsoft knows what kind of porn I watch. I mean, I kind of hate all the step porn that is showing up everywhere. It's annoying. But yeah. I've actually just switched to Firefox because Google has instituted new policies with Chrome that, like, just reading through them, I'm just like, no, that seems like massive privacy violations, and I don't want to consent to that. And I guess the thing I got to do is switch to Firefox. Because Firefox, I don't believe, is Chromium based. So, yeah, I am now a Firefox user for the most part. It's been mostly painless to switch over. Dark Excalibur says Vivaldi is the browser I trust the most now. I have heard of Vivaldi, but I don't remember much about it. Anubian says I use Opera GX. Opera GX is Chromium based, so I think that's going to still be affected by the recent Google update thing. I don't know. Firefox is one that I know that has broad compatibility and is not Chromium based. I don't know about Vivaldi. Yeah, Duct Tape Jape says, I'm not a huge fan of an AI-based screen recorder watching me type a bank password into a browser. Yeah, that's kind of my issue with it. Whereas, like, I could see how such a tool could be useful, but I need you to guarantee that it's staying completely 100% local. And I don't trust that Microsoft would actually be following through with such a guarantee. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it for tonight. As always, fuck off.